Hi everybody, I'm Nick Butler from the Charleston County Public Library, and I'm standing here on the east side of Anson Street in Charleston, South Carolina. Calhoun Street and the Public Library are directly behind me, and I'm here next to the Gaillard Performing Arts Center in Charleston. And this is a site where in 2013, you might remember, there was construction going on. They were expanding the Gaillard Municipal Auditorium that was built in the late 1960s. And in the process of digging up the area where I'm standing now, workmen discovered graves, human remains, where there were no maps or plats that showed any kind of a graveyard here. So work stopped in February of 2013, and the coroner came in, identified them as old historic human remains, and the city of Charleston called in an archaeological firm, Brockington and Associates, to excavate the area and investigate the graves. Brockington and Associates found 36 sets of human remains here, buried in fairly neat rows, most without caskets, some with evidence of a wooden casket that had long ago deteriorated. Those human remains were disinterred by a local funeral home company and put in wooden boxes and stored off-site while the city of Charleston worked with various partners in the community to investigate the history of this site, to try to determine why these people had been buried here and the site not marked, and if possible to identify who these people were. So I got involved in this project from the early days because the public library is not too far away and we have such good resources at the public library for investigating local history. So working with Brockington and Associates and working with the city of Charleston, I started investigating the history of this site. This is part of Anson Borough, a community that was laid out in 1745. Anson Street here used to be Scarborough Street, and it was renamed part of Anson Street in the 19th century. But this streetscape and this suburban neighborhood was laid out after George Anson, who owned the property, had gone back to England. And in the 1740s, this became a suburban development. This was pasture land. This was farmland before 1745. And meanwhile, while we're doing investigation, there are people in other areas who are doing forensic research, people who are studying the human remains, the bones, the teeth, and the artifacts they found with them to try to identify these people. What they ended up finding from that scientific laboratory analysis is that each of the individuals buried here was of African descent. Of those 36 individuals, there were some men, some adult women, and some children, some of whom had been born in Africa and some of whom had been born in South Carolina of African parents. And we suspect that these people were buried here sometime in the second half of the 18th century. So based on the artifacts that were found among those people, including one 1773 British penny, we suspect these people were buried sometime after 1750 or thereabouts, and sometime before 1800. And after several years of research, that's as close as we've been able to get to narrow down the time frame of these burials. And I've been searching with a number of colleagues in the area to find plats to understand the history of this area, but we haven't found any evidence of anybody remarking about this as a burial ground in the 18th century or the 19th century. In the early 1800s, this site was built over, we know for a fact, and there was no marker of any kind when construction started in the 1960s or in 2013 when this area was being expanded and the footprint of the Gaillard Auditorium enlarged quite a bit. In the years after 2013, the city of Charleston partnered with a number of people to interpret and to mark somehow the site where these people had been discovered and to plan some way to reinter them. There were many discussions going on in the community about where would be a proper place to rebury them. And a number of people felt that the proper place was where they had been resting in years before. So the City of Charleston, working in partnership with the College of Charleston and the Gullah Society and me at the Public Library, among other people, decided that here at the Gaillard Center, closer to George Street, where I am now, would be the most appropriate place to bury these people. And the city began planning, in conjunction with the Gullah Society, a large festive occasion on which to mark this reburial. On May 4th, 2019, there was a big festive occasion right here on George Street in Charleston to honor the reburial of the 36 individuals who were found buried in an unmarked graveyard here on the the east side of Anson Street. So on that Saturday, there was a big gathering of people here, and the individual wooden boxes in which the people had been disinterred in 2013 were redeposited on this site on the south side of the Gaillard Performing Arts Center. This is really the most appropriate place, close to where they were originally found, but still accessible to the public, and rather handsome location as well. And what you see here is a temporary marker erected by the City of Charleston that just summarizes all the information I just told you about these people, what we know about them, and their story. And this will be replaced eventually by a much larger, more elaborate kind of marker that's still being designed and conceived by various individuals. Over the past couple of years, the City of Charleston has partnered with the Gaillard Society and the College of Charleston and Brockington and Associates and the Charleston County Public Library, but also through the Gaillard Society has gotten involved the University of Pennsylvania and National Geographic. And there has been funding allocated for doing DNA analysis of the individuals who were found here. And before they were reinterred, there was detailed analysis done of those remains. So we have a full genetic profile of those individuals, which can be studied by future generations of scientists and people who may claim some kind of relationship to the people buried here. The results of that scientific investigation that's been going on at the University of Pennsylvania can be found in online reports accessible through the Gaillard Society and at the Charleston County Public Library. But there is more information yet to be published. Very soon will be even more detailed information about the genetic profile of these people. There's still much to learn about these people that I, in 2013, started calling the Gaillard graves, but now we're calling them the Anson Street ancestors. Through the website of the Gaillard Society, you can find more about the individuals that are reburied here, and also on the Charleston Time Machine, episode number 111 from May of 2019. You can find more about the history of this area where we are right now, and a little bit about the research that led us to narrow down the focus between 1750 and 1800 as the approximate time frame for these mysterious burials. But hopefully there will be more information coming down the road in the future and a handsome marker at this site in years to come. So if you're in Charleston and you happen to be in the Anson Borough neighborhood, why not come down to George Street and see for yourself the burial site of the Anson Street ancestors.